appreciate you tuning in for another brand new review. So what's in store for you here tonight? You might have thought that I was slacking on it, folks, but it's just been a busy few weeks at this point here. I am absolutely ready to jump into it. Tonight, we are talking The Last of Us Season 2. It's been a little bit since we've had a chance to jump into the world of this show, but a couple weeks ago, we are back and running on all cylinders at this point. Some big developments have happened. So tonight, I am talking the first two episodes of the second season. We are talking Future Days and Through the Valley. Now, keep in mind, we are going to be discussing spoilers, so if you have not watched this yet, you're going to want to turn things off right now because there's some big stuff that we got to talk about here in these two episodes. So, if you are checking out The Last of Us for the first time, you might have missed in the first season, it told the story of this virus that runs rampant across the United States. And long story short, it's very similar like 28 Days Later or any other zombie virus to where it's killing a number of people and ultimately turning them into murderous monsters that go around killing everybody else. Society ultimately collapsed and we lived in this dystopian future. Now, the show focused around Joel and Ellie. Joel was a smuggler who was trying to get Ellie to the other side of the country to a group of scientists who could hopefully use Ellie as a way to find a cure to this virus that has ravaged the country. Unfortunately, though, as we found out at the end of the first season, the only way for them to start actually looking for that cure, to actually get a good start, would ultimately mean Ellie's death. They'd have to basically euthanize her in order to actually study all of her genetic material and hopefully develop a cure. And Joel selfishly decides, rather than let that happen, as he's developed this attachment to Ellie, that he's going to kill everybody who's aware of this and keep this secret buried down deep. And that's what happens. Joel ends up killing all the scientists that were going to go and complete this operation on Ellie. And he kills everybody who was basically there at this hospital, a group of rebels, mercenaries, whatever you want to call them, called the Fireflies. And the end of the first season was Joel assuring Ellie that there was nothing else that could be done, that there wasn't a way to make a cure, and that he had her best interests at heart, even though obviously this is all a lie. So when we start off here in season 2, we are introduced to Abby, played by Kaitlyn Dever, and her group of leftover Fireflies, who, as we find out, all have relations to the group of scientists and other Fireflies that were at the facility in Seattle that Joel went to rescue Ellie from. And as we find out, Abby's father was the lead scientist that was carrying out the operation that Joel killed rather errantly. But everything that went down with Joel and Ellie in the first season pretty much decimated that cause. So the Fireflies aren't really a thing anymore. So as much as Abby wants this revenge against Joel, her friends are basically trying to let her know, like, you know, what can we actually do here? And that takes us 5 years later. So the show is set 5 years after the ending events of that first season. And that's a good choice. Obviously, I know we are adapting the video games here, but moving ahead 5 years and not immediately addressing anything that occurred in those 5 years gives us a chance to kind of reset the scales and still come in new. And we see very clearly that there is a strain in the relationship between Joel and Ellie. Ellie's not stupid. Ellie doesn't know specifically what happened back at that hospital with the Fireflies and Joel, but she's smart enough to know that choices were made that she didn't have a say in, and that was a large part of her life leading up to her meeting Joel and then the two of them going across the country together. Is that in this new world that we occupy, everybody has to have their own voice, and Ellie likely feels that that was taken away from her, and Joel, who is just trying to protect her at every single turn, is making choices for her that he doesn't really have the right to do. So there's a strain between the two of them for sure, and who knows if other events have happened in the 5 years since to cause even bigger problems between the two. But we see this kind of blows up a bit more. Ellie ends up kissing this other girl, this friend of hers, Dina, there at this dance, that causes a bit of commotion with another member of the town. That Joel steps in and causes a ruckus there. And it just puts this further strain between the two of them. Doesn't matter how, you know, altruistic Joel's intentions were at that point. Ellie is very much in a place where she just doesn't want Joel involved with anything that's happening in the town, in her life at all. She doesn't want him to have that kind of involvement there. So there's a clear divide between the two of them that's obviously going to have to get worked out because in the world that we live in, you can only be divided so long before something snaps up and takes you out. And we see not only that, but a number of Joel's actions in his past have begun to catch up with him. He's currently in therapy, seeing the town's resident therapist, Gina, played by Catherine O'Hara, who it's so cool to see actors getting to do like different roles in different projects that you would never expect them in. I would have never expected Catherine O'Hara in something like The Last of Us, and I think that's incredibly cool. But even that is set up to have a strain on it as well as we find out that Joel actually killed Gina's husband Eugene at some point prior to the events of season 2. And regardless of the events that go down in episode 2, I genuinely wonder whether or not we're going to see more of these therapy sessions between Gina and Joel, just as it's a good way for Joel to work through that trauma and maybe give us some insight into some of the events that ended up happening in that 5-year gap. Things are not hunky-dory in Jackson, though, either, as they are continuing to rebuild, continue to fortify the town. We find out in the water pipes they're currently working with, what's in there, what they believe to just be a bunch of, like, roots growing through it. And that happens in real life. Turns out that there are cordyceps in there as well, too, meaning that the disease, the infection, has reached Jackson. This is a ticking time bomb. This is going to end up causing issues at some point. And that takes us into the second episode, Through the Valley. So again, Abby and her former Firefly friends have shown up. They're in eyesight of Jackson. They know that Joel is there and they need to find a way to get him out, but as they realize, they can't exactly storm the town. There's only a handful of them, and Jackson is a thriving community. If they go in there, they are absolutely going to get apprehended or killed before they get a chance to go and get him. And the interesting thing about all of this is that even though, sure, you could say Abby is justified in wanting to get her revenge on Joel for killing her father, her friends still seem like they're not really that much into the plan. They know how wild and how insane this kind of plan is, and they're ultimately trying to figure out a way to get Abby to leave, to head back home, because this mission can only end in death. It can only end in misery for all of them. It's going to be a bad vibe, a bad omen, and all of them are absolutely correct about that, especially obviously if you played the games. You know, like the fates of a lot of these people and what this inciting incident is about to set off for all of them. But ultimately, what should just be another random day in the lives of all these characters that we've been watching turns out to be one of the most important days for all of them, as what should be a normal day ends up having Ellie and Jesse heading out on patrol, while Dina and Joel are out on patrol as well too. And the two groups are going to converge in ways they didn't even realize, as Abby, who's seeking to find a way to get into Jackson and find a way to Joel, ends up happening upon Joel and Dina while being chased by a number of infected. Now, of course, Joel doesn't know any better. Dina's exercising that they should take a little bit more caution, that there are some issues here with her just being out in the middle of nowhere. But either way, Abby takes Joel and Dina back to the lodge that Abby and her friends were all staying at, in which they proceed to ambush Joel and Dina. They knock Dina out, and then the torture of Joel begins. Now, for a lot of you, I'm sure you weren't expecting that this was going to be happening so soon, because usually in a story like this, we're going to play it out. It's going to be a race across the entire season of Abby and her friends getting close to catching Joel, but it doesn't happen. He eludes them once again. And then we get to the end of the season, and that's when like the big confrontation would happen. But those of us who have played these games, even when the show was announced, I had a question of how long it was going to take before we got to this exact moment, because this is a fairly big moment. And this ultimately leads, big spoilers, y'all. Again, I warned y'all if you were tuning in, this leads to the death of Joel by Abby. There is right now a lot of discussion of what's happened here with this episode, the way that Abby was introduced, the way all this ended up coming together. There's been a lot of discussion on it right now, and I'm willing to let it play out. Ellie ends up getting there and seeing what happens, and of course, she's going to swear revenge against Abby and her friends for what ultimately goes down with Joel's death here. And this is a big moment because it's been presented to us for a while at this point that Joel is the lead character of this show. and taking him out like this when there's still unresolved tension between him and Ellie, the fact that they'll never get to have those conversations now, that Joel will never be able to be upfront and honest with her about the reason why he saved her life, the selfish reasons that he took, like all of this is taken away. And that serves for a great story. That is fantastic trauma to have to pick apart across the bulk of this season. I'm excited. I am very, very excited to see the way that Bella Ramsey is able to approach this, because it's going to be heavy and it's going to be daunting. And it's not just even her either. Kaitlyn Dever, who's playing Abby, is also going to have a lot of work to do this season and building that emotional connection that we're going to need. Because right now, a lot of the audience just isn't gelling with Abby the way that we would in the game. And I think that's going to be on Dever showing these kind of performances over the next few episodes that's really going to attune her to us. I mean, this story is going to be carried out across 2 seasons. There's no way that they're going to finish this up here with season 2. We are absolutely going to be still diving into this come season 3 as well. But I think that's really the goal here, is that they have to use this season to really set up Abby as this person we can root for, because I think that's what season 3 is really going to be. I do think that the idea is going to be that her and Abby are going to split season 3 as our leads, just the way that they do that in the video game as well too. So who knows? I'm curious what y'all think. Let me know that in the comment section. We also got one of the best battles, one of the best like situations with the infected here in this second episode as well too, as they end up sacking the town of Jackson, and Tommy and Maria are trying to defend it with everything they have. It is some of the coolest action that we have seen on this show. Terrifying. Tommy with that flamethrower trying to kill the bloater, like so good. And again, setting the stage for some of the cooler scenes we're going to see later on this season. You know they had to use a lot of the budget on this one. But thus far, The Last of Us season 2 is coming correct. Folks, I am so happy that the show is back, and you know we have so much goodness coming up here again over the coming weeks. So stick with me on this one. Make sure to get subscribed, especially to my link tree at linktr.ee/T Scary Movie. If you get subscribed, that's going to be access to the YouTube page for the video versions of the show, your favorite podcasting platforms, the audio only versions of the show, to my Letterboxd page for written reviews and movie rankings throughout the year, to my TikTok page for full episodes, movie news, and movie premieres, to my Twitch page for my horror gaming. Right now I'm going through Until Dawn, and to my Fangoria shop page where you can enjoy a 20% discount off anything in the Fangoria shop. Take advantage of that, y'all. Hit that subscribe button. I got more great reviews coming out for y'all. I don't want you to miss any of that. And if you are in Denver, don't forget to pick up tickets to go check out Series Fest this coming weekend, May 2nd, May 3rd, because you'll get a chance to catch the premiere episode of my TV show that I got a chance to be a part of, Better Luck Than Chuck, the first horror trivia game show out there. I don't want y'all to miss that. We are hopefully amping up for a full release later on this year to some streaming service. I'll keep you in the loop on that. But stay tuned, y'all. Hit that subscribe button. That is it tonight. My name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.